Hey guys, so I wanted to address something in this video that I don't think is addressed often enough in the realm of strength and fitness, particularly among guys who are highly interested and passionate about getting strong and getting fit. Even though, in my opinion, this is something that really should be kind of mentioned as one of the most important factors in the strength training journey, it really isn't. At least my experience has been that it tends not to be. And what I'm talking about specifically is recovery. Now, what I mean by recovery is your ability to recover from your training sufficiently that you actually come out further ahead in terms of strength and vitality and energy long term. Now, I can tell you from experience, this is not necessarily an easy thing to evaluate in yourself, even as a highly experienced trainee. You can train for years sometimes, certainly months, and often years, at a trajectory that is just barely unsustainable, given your other physical commitments and responsibilities in life. Now, I chose to film this video outside because I'm giving you an example of some of my other commitments and responsibilities in the physical realm, other stuff besides my training that takes a toll on my body and that I have to make sure that I'm accounting for when I decide if my training intensity is truly sustainable for me. The cabin/house behind me here was something that I built with my wife, with my own two hands, over the last decade or so, off and on, while I worked my job. Now, this was something that was very physically taxing on me. It was mentally taxing too, because I didn't know what I was doing when I started, but it was physically taxing, and I learned the hard way that I couldn't just train at my normal, rather high intensity 4 or sometimes 5 times a week while doing stuff like this. And the reason it was the hard way is because I many times ran myself into the ground trying to do that, trying to ignore the fact that I had many other physical demands on my body, on my energy, on my strength, on my joints, on my muscles and bones, besides lifting weights in the gym. In fact, lifting weights in the gym, although it has always been, since I started training, one of my number one passions in life, it had to take a back seat because I wanted to be the kind of man who put his family first. I've always wanted that, and I think every good man with a family should take that approach, especially when putting their family first means putting a roof over their heads. And since this was the path I chose to take, rather than buying a house or getting a mortgage or hiring someone to build for me, I chose to build myself. And once I made that decision, I was obligated by my responsibilities to follow that through. And that's what I wanted to be doing. But I also really, really wanted to be training hard regularly. So I did. And the result was years of injury. Bicep tendonitis in both elbows, patellar tendonitis. I had a strained pectoral muscle at one time for about 1.5 years. It kept me from benching heavy. I've had low back issues, numerous low back issues over the last several years, hamstring and hip issues, and other things. My latest injury is an IT band strain that's kept me from squatting heavy for a good many weeks now, and probably will for a good many more weeks. Because to be honest, I still, to this day, struggle with this lesson myself. The lesson being that I have to hold back sometimes in the gym because of the other stuff I've got to do, because of the other drains on the tank of my energy and strength and ability to recover. That's why recovery is so important, because if you don't pay attention to it, particularly if you're a man who, like me, has a lot of physical demands placed on him because of his lifestyle and where he's living and things, then you have to think very carefully and hard about the trajectory of what you're doing, which is the combination of the various physical demands to earn a living, to provide for your family, to do whatever you have to do outside the gym, plus what you do inside the gym. So if the combination of those two things the sum total is a greater level of stress than you can recover from, or even if you think maybe it might be, because as I said, it's not necessarily an obvious thing until you run yourself into the ground, which it's better to avoid if possible. But if you think even you might be close to that, then my advice, pull back in the gym. You know, I used to be a big believer in full out intensity all the time, every workout. But that's just not sustainable for anyone, I would say, short of genetic freaks or, hardcore steroid using lifters. And even for those guys, like, there's a limit. I have seen, and I can't believe this idea still circulates, but I have seen numerous guys who are pretty accomplished in their lifts and in their strength and things say in one way or another that overtraining is a myth, that it doesn't exist. It's impossible to overtrain. It's just in your head. That is idiotic. And, if you believe that, you really need to give your head a shake, because it's so obvious to anyone who has been injured, who has done more for a long time, more physically than their body can recover from, that, there's a limit to what you can do to yourself physically and recover and come back stronger. You think about what you're doing in the gym. You never, ever, ever leave the gym stronger than you went in before the workout. You leave much, much weaker every single time, because you're putting stress on your body. You're breaking yourself down. You're making micro tears in the muscle tissue. And yes, in the presence of proper nutrition, proper rest and recovery, and an adequate time away from the gym after that workout, yes, you will gradually get stronger. But you're certainly not any stronger right afterwards, right after pumping that iron. And if right after doing that, you've got to cut and chop 10 cords of firewood and work on your house, do some cedar shingling, for example, which is the latest job I'm doing on this place. And you got to be up and down a ladder all day for 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day. And then, who knows, you got to lift some steel stair railings into your house, which is another thing I'll be doing over the next couple of days. I'm just picking examples from my own life, but it could be anything. I mean, I know there are some guys in the group who are bricklayers or construction workers, and these guys probably know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't thought about this sort of thing too carefully before and just sort of taken a hopeful, happy-go-lucky approach to your training, or maybe if you by chance are one of those guys who doesn't really believe in overtraining, I highly, highly suggest you rethink that. I mean, in all my experience as a lifter and as a coach, I know for a fact overtraining is a thing, and it is very, very possible and easy to fall into without necessarily knowing it until it's too late and you're injured and you're knocked onto your back and you got to take weeks or months off from training, or at least partially off from training. That's not where you want to be, especially because if you're a member of this group, if you're part of Strength North of 50, chances are you've got at least a basic level of passion for strength sports of some kind, for training, for being your best physically. And we all want to be our best physically. We don't want our love for the gym and our love for strength to end up making us weaker overall rather than stronger. So that's where this evaluation comes in, this self-evaluation. You may have to be brutally honest with yourself, and you may have to pull back more than you really want to. That has been a big struggle for me over the years, wanting to give it all I've got in the gym because I really feel deep down that that's the best and most efficient way to get where I want to go. But the truth I had to accept is that that's simply not the case. It's not the case when I take into account all the other physical responsibilities, like the house behind me, that are placed on my shoulders. The only effective approach to training is to train as hard as you can while still fully recovering from each session in time for the next one. And if that means taking more deloads, taking a deload week from the gym every 4 weeks instead of every 8 weeks or 12 weeks, or if it means training less volume, lighter weight for higher reps, there are a number of different ways to lower the intensity in an incremental, gradual way. That said, just to clarify, you don't want to lower intensity any more than you have to recover, because Recovery is vital, but it's also important to do something hard enough to recover from in the first place. But for the guys who tend to not train hard enough, this video isn't really for them. This video is for the guys like myself who tend to just go in, both feet, jump in, hardcore all the time, and that's our natural tendency. And I'm telling you now from experience, that natural tendency can lead to issues. It has for me. I know it has for a lot of guys in the group. So think about the demands you're putting on your body. Pull back if necessary. Don't be afraid to work a little less hard for the greater good, because chances are, by doing so, you will be avoiding future injury and you'll end up much further ahead long term in your strength journey, because you'll need a whole lot less time to rehab and take time off, as happens when you're injured. So just something to think about. I'm thinking of doing videos like this every week or so for the group, sharing my experiences and things and insights. So I hope you find this helpful. If you do, let me know. And if you have a particular topic or question you'd like to see me cover in a future installment, let me know that too. Thanks for watching.